Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Clean Fuels Serving Law Enforcement webinar this afternoon. My name is Sarah Selkirk-Jones, and I'm a program coordinator here with Virginia Clean Cities. We have a lot of information to get through today, but first I want to give you a brief rundown of the event. First, I'll start off by giving you all a bit of information about our Drive Clean Rural USA project that allows our team at Virginia Clean Cities to provide free technical assistance to rural fleets in Virginia. Then we will hear from our EV and propane speakers. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of the event, so please feel free to put any questions that you have during the presentations in the chat, and we will hold those until the end of the session. So this Drive Clean Rural USA project provides free technical assistance that we are providing through Virginia Clean Cities. It is a DOE funded project headed by Transportation Energy Partners and facilitated by 8 Clean Cities coalitions across the United States. This project also has a group of amazing industry partners that will provide demonstration vehicles, training, and technical expertise on the full range of clean fuels on this project. And this is a fuel neutral project. We believe that any transition away from petroleum-based fuels is a positive step, and we can work with your fleets to find the right path for your needs. Barriers to access are leaving small and rural communities out in the transition to clean fuels, and our goal of this program is to fix that. We're trying to get more small and rural communities benefiting from clean fuels and vehicles. Through this project, we'll be providing fleets with 4 areas of assistance, including fleet assistance, demonstration vehicles, regional jobs and business growth, and the promotion of fleet leadership. Now, the most significant asset partner fleets will receive is in-depth technical assistance. We'll work closely with your fleet managers to assess your current fleets in order to identify where it might make the most sense to start the transition to clean fuel vehicles. Our goal is to help you create a 5 to 10 year plan that makes financial sense and can be realistically implemented for your fleet. Our industry partners are also loaning demonstration vehicles for purposes that we will help organize for your fleets. These vehicle providers also have technical expertise and will be able to help share tips and training with your fleet operators and technicians. A big priority for the Drive Clean Rural USA project is to share the lessons that we have learned to help other small and rural communities benefit from clean fuels. So participating fleets will be featured in a replication playbook, which will be disseminated nationally through Department of Energy, Clean Cities coalitions, our industry partners, and other organizations. All along the way, we want to spotlight the leadership of these participating fleets. And now we will get on to the webinar itself. So up first, we will hear from our EV expert, Tyler Herrmann, who will give us a brief overview of electric vehicles. Tyler is the co-coordinator for Louisiana Clean Fuels, and he graduated from Louisiana State University in 2017 with a bachelor's in physics and a concentration in astronomy. He started working with Louisiana Clean Fuels in 2017 and was promoted to co-coordinator in 2018. He is responsible for the Louisiana Green Fleet Certification Program, emission reduction analysis, landfill gas to compressed natural gas, curriculum development, and other various projects and programs. And with that, Tyler, I will let you take it away.
Thank you, Sarah. And yeah, as Sarah mentioned, Tyler Herrmann, co-coordinator for Louisiana Clean Fuels. We are one of 2 Clean Cities coalitions here in Louisiana. We cover the majority of the state, excluding the greater New Orleans area, which is covered by our sister coalition, the Southeast Louisiana Clean Fuel Partnership. If you're familiar with Clean Cities at all, I'll mostly forego all of the typical Clean Cities introduction stuff and get right to the electric vehicle basics. So if you can go one slide forward, there's kind of a lot to cover with electric vehicles. There's a lot of nuance and complexity you can get into, but I'll try to keep it fairly high level in the interest of time, and any questions you'll have at the end, please put them our way. But really, there are kind of 3 different types of vehicle electrification that fleets might want to consider or individuals might want to consider. From lower electrification, like hybrid electric vehicles, the stuff you're very familiar with, Toyota Prius, Honda Insight, all those sorts of vehicles. That incorporates an electric motor and a battery in the vehicle that allows you to get around having kind of the traditional transmission gearbox with discrete gears and all that sort of stuff, and also allows you to avoid idling at a standstill. That's one of the big benefits of hybrids. In addition to regular fuel efficiency increases through the hybrid drivetrain, they have that larger battery, and that can power all of your auxiliaries, your air conditioner, compressor, and everything when you're at a standstill, so you're not running the engine the entire time. That's particularly relevant for police fleets, as there's quite a bit of idling associated with that use case for vehicles. And so hybrids might be an attractive option for that reason. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have fully electric vehicles that have no gas engine whatsoever. And this could either be supported by a large battery, which is kind of the focus of this presentation, or hydrogen fuel cell, which it is an electric vehicle, but that energy is coming from hydrogen gas. So for a fully electric vehicle, you have a very large battery that is something in the 80 to 100 kilowatt hour range for anybody who's familiar with those metrics. And that's supporting 100% electric driving with large motors that where all the electricity is coming from the wall, from the grid. And that we're going to talk about the chargers in a moment, but that really gives you a lot of efficiency benefits because it's a much simpler system mechanically. It's much lower temperature, so you're not having to spend as much energy cooling. And all told, the efficiency of an electric vehicle is somewhere in the 80 to 90% ballpark. So 80 to 90% of all the energy you put into the vehicle through your plug goes into actually usable drivability, your powering your electronics, your auxiliaries, your air conditioner, all that sort of stuff. Whereas in a gas vehicle, those percentages are somewhere in the 20 to 35% range. They're significantly less efficient compared to the amount of energy you put into your gas tank, right? And then so you get between the hybrid electric vehicle and the fully electric vehicle, you have plug-in hybrids. And this is what I own. That middle picture is actually my Honda Clarity, enjoying a break from the swampy Louisiana weather in Tennessee, where we had some snow, which is quite nice. And this has kind of the best of both worlds to some degree, but kind of neither is not the master of either. So it has hybrid electric drivetrain that is powered by a gas engine, but it also has a much larger battery and a larger electric motor than a hybrid so that it can support full electric driving from grid power. So it also has a plug there. And again, that's kind of an attractive middle ground so that you can still get a lot of the benefits of all electric driving for commuting and that sort of thing, but also have that gas range to get you much further if you have some range issues or it can't be supported by a fully electric vehicle. So you can go on to the next slide, please. So one of the difficulties with electric vehicles is that they have chargers, and anybody who owns an Android or an iPhone, you're well familiar with the issues of going to a friend's house and not having the right plug to charge your phone. Luckily, that's mostly been solved for electric vehicles. The Society of Automotive Engineers, the SAE, have standards, and basically every vehicle supports that standard. Except for Tesla. Tesla has their own proprietary plugs. You can see that plug at the very bottom right of the chart. But there are sort of three different types of charging that we really focus on. We have level 1, level 2, and DC fast charging, and these are technical standards. So they're very different. The terminology used by kind of industry people is kind of different than what consumers use. So you'll often hear consumers say level 3 when they're referring to DC fast charging, and that's just the way that language works. But industry people get a little bit pedantic sometimes and separate those out because level 3 is not a really defined standard. So to briefly go through the difference between the levels, the level 1 charging is just 120 volt regular wall outlet charging, alternating current, super simple. It's what you plug your phone into every night is 120 volt. That is much slower in terms of the charging speed, which we'll get into in a moment. A step up from that is level 2 charging. This is 240 volt alternating current, same sort of thing you use for your heavy duty appliances in your home, your washing machine, dryer, all that sort of stuff. And that's a little bit faster on average. You can get significantly faster than level 1 charging. And then you have your DC fast charging, which is not alternating current, it's direct current, which is kind of what batteries actually like to accept more. And it can be much, much faster. That's in a 480 volt range, but can get way up to 600 volts and significantly higher than that in some situations. So we have two other ways that we really talk about charging in terms of charging rate in the industry or in consumers. Is the miles of range you get per hour of charging is one of those metrics. And then the other is your actual power rating of the charger in kilowatts. So in terms of the miles of range per charging, for level 1, you're really roughly looking at 2 to 5 miles of range per hour, which is much nicer for just like supporting regular commuting as an individual. You're parked at home for 10, 12 hours a night anyway, so you can get through most of your day driving 50, 60 miles a day at max through just level 1 charging. Level 2 charging is much more fleet supporting and kind of supporting charging much faster. If you have a fully electric vehicle at home, that can get you anywhere from 10 to 20 miles of range, and actually much higher than that in some situations per hour of charging. And in DC fast charging, these numbers are really rough for DC fast charging because DC fast charging can go all the way from 20 kilowatts in terms of power up to 1,000 kilowatts in power. So there's a massive range for that, which is once again why it's a technical standard, not really an actual indicator of the qualitative experience of using it. And then just to put those numbers really quickly to it with the power rating, level 1 is somewhere around 1 kilowatt or so of power. Level 2 can range from 3 kilowatts up to 25, 26 kilowatts, which is pretty significant spread there. And in DC fast charging, we've seen all the way down to the 20 kilowatt area up to, like I said, 1,000 kilowatts. So very, very large spreads there. The connector types is thankfully not super concerning for most people now that the SE has a standard and it's been accepted by basically all automakers. But you have the connectors at the top, that's the J1772. It's common between level 1 and 2. And then at the bottom, DC fast, you see at the left side, that looks very much like a J1772, plus these extra 2 little pins. And that's exactly what it is. It's a combined charging standard, a CCS that SAE developed. Those 2 bottom pins are for the high voltage direct current to pass through. The middle one is CHAdeMO. That is a mostly defunct standard here in the US. It's still supported by the Nissan Leaf, but everything else is moving towards CCS or Tesla's proprietary plug. And the last thing there is that Teslas can use all the plugs through adapters, and non-Teslas cannot use Tesla charging stations, except for the level 1 and 2 charging stations by Tesla. So a little bit of an advantage there to Teslas. You move on to the next one. So this is mostly here for reference later on, and as the PowerPoint's sent out to y'all can go through that link and look through this. But I just want to show one of the other benefits, which is maintenance costs when it comes to battery electric vehicles. They're significantly lower than internal combustion engines. So this is a report from Argonne National Labs that came out last year looking at per mile maintenance costs by powertrain. So from left to right, you have just internal combustion engine, hybrid electric vehicle, plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, and battery electric vehicle like we're talking about today. You see it's about 60% of the maintenance cost per mile of an internal combustion engine. And that can give you a lot of savings in the long term. So we'll not go through each one of those itemized bits there because that's a lot. But for reference later on, this is kind of a really good chart to get some assumptions that you can make. So you can move on to the next slide, please. So I did a really, really rough cost of ownership analysis for electric vehicles in A-Fleet, which is a tool that we use quite a bit in the industry in clean cities. And so looking at a 15-year lifetime for an EV versus a gas vehicle, here are some of the kind of line items, the total amount you might expect to spend over that full lifetime. And you can see it kind of lines up with what you might expect. The depreciation is higher because the vehicle is more expensive, so you have more to depreciate. The fuel cost is much lower for electric. So again, it's about a third. It's about a third of the cost per mile for electric vehicles compared to gas vehicles. The maintenance and repair is about 60%, like we saw on the last slide. And looking at that per mile is really, really useful for framing why electric vehicles or why alternative fuels in general can show you some benefits over traditional gas or diesel vehicles. You get a lot of your savings in operational savings. The vehicles might be more expensive up front, especially in the case of electric vehicles today, as the market's not quite mature yet, or is getting there. You might spend a premium up front, but if you drive that vehicle a lot, you can actually get some savings in the long term. And so for fleets that drive a lot, so police fleets might drive many tens of thousands of miles a year, or idle a lot, you'll get a lot more savings out of it because you're using that vehicle more. And so that's one of the reasons that we like to frame things in per mile costs and look at where that break-even point is. So you can see the total cost of ownership at the bottom. You're saving 160 grand or so over the total 15-year lifetime of an electric vehicle versus gasoline vehicle. And there's a break-even point somewhere, the 6 and 7 year ballpark there. You go to the next slide. And then I just wanted to have this up there just for a little bit of reference. There are quite a bit of EVs on the road. They do get quite expensive, like all cars do, but we're getting a lot of the kind of mid-level, lower luxury, more expensive vehicles, or less expensive vehicles coming down the line. So we have, this is, I think 11 or so, or 15 or so vehicles that are all under $50,000 that are fully electric. And these are all available today. There are, I think, a good 13 or 14 or so that are coming to the US sometime this year, debuting in 2022. But currently we've got quite a decent spread there. So it's coming faster than I think we might realize, but the market's definitely still in the maturing phase. So just want to have this up there for reference. And that's all I've got today. I'll leave it really quick and to the point and leave as much time for Q&A as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. And like I said, if anyone has any questions for Tyler, definitely feel free to put them in the chat now, and we will answer them at the end. So now we will hear from Chief Koskinas and Officer Sampson from the Westport Police Department in Connecticut about their experiences with electric vehicles. Chief Koskinas began his career as a Westport police officer back in 1996. In 2016, he was promoted to chief of the department. He is the recipient of the department's Medal of Valor, 4 commendations, 6 honorable police service awards, 2 life-saving awards, 4 unit citations, and an investigator's ribbon. In June of 2019, the Police Commissioners Association of Connecticut chose Koskinas as one of 3 chiefs for the Distinguished Chiefs Award. He has attended the FBI Regional Command College and the Anti-Defamation League's Advanced Training School in Extremist and Terrorist Threats, earned an executive certificate in public policy from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government in October of 2020, and is currently pursuing an executive certificate in leadership in government from the Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Chief Koskinas lives in Fairfield, Connecticut with his wife Christina and daughters Zoe and Phoebe. And Charles Sampson is the Information Services Officer in charge of the Westport Police Department's computer systems, video systems, and is responsible for the implementation of a new computer-aided dispatch, records management, and mobile computer system. He has also written several programs that are utilized by the department, which assist in the day-to-day operations of the Records Division. As the department's liaison to the Fairfield Westport Combined Dispatch Center, he is responsible for all of the technology and the new radio system planned to be implemented in this state-of-the-art facility that will initially serve the 2 towns' public safety sectors. And with that, I will hand the floor over to you 2 gentlemen to talk about your experience with electric vehicles.
Good afternoon, everybody. Fody Koskinas with the police department. Tyler, thank you for handling the technical side of it. I don't want to say dumb it down, but I'm going to dumb it down a little bit on my end, and we're going to go right back to the technical stuff with Officer Sampson, who was really the brains of the operation here at the Westport Police Department. I'd like to start off with people that are looking at these electric vehicles. We really need to have an open mind and be open to exploring and ideas. And the reason we got to where we got is from actually listening to webinars and doing things of the same audience that you have here today. And the other part that we're extremely lucky in our community, we're 45 miles out of New York City in Westport, Connecticut. We're a coastal community. We do have the pleasure of being a relatively affluent community, but really without our community support, we would not be able to be doing what we're doing. Our success is truly based by having the backbone of the community, sustainable Connecticut, sustainable Westport, which we feel we've given just as much back to them in a short time, but without their help, we certainly wouldn't be here. So I would urge anybody who's looking to explore down these paths is to really get involved with your sustainable groups in your communities, because it buys the credibility you need. Any data that we've put out the last 5 or 6 years between Charlie and I, all of it has either been vetted or completely created by either Sustainable Connecticut or Sustainable Westport. We do not put our own information out because often it is seen as self-serving, or we may have come up with the numbers in certain ways. So I can't urge you enough. A little bit of history on the Westport Police Department and electric vehicles. We started early in 2007. We were using full Crown Victorias for traffic enforcement, non-police functions, and we were finding in an 8-hour shift, especially in summertime months, we were using anywhere from 10 to 14 gallons of fuel. We went to 2 first-generation Priuses at the time and saw incredible success. That was our first exposure of, wow, this really works. And the payouts and the payoff altogether was an incredible feedback again from our community. The police department is unique here in Westport, Connecticut. We oversee our railroad operations. And as you can imagine, 45 miles out of New York City, we have 2 very busy train stations. Metro North from Grand Central to Boston continues to be the busiest railways, just to give you an idea. And we have all responsibilities of the train stations. The reason I tell you that is during the renovation of 2012, we converted one of our biggest train stations, the building itself, to completely solar. I can tell you from 2012 to today, every single month we sell back to the grid, and that includes charging 4 charging stations that we have never charged a single person for their usage. And we continue to feed back to the grid even with that usage, in an entire building, approximately 4,500 square feet. So that's another success area. I'm not pushing the solar panels, but just to give you an idea how we got where we got. Fast forward to today, 2022, 15% of our fleet is either electric, hybrid, or a combination of both. We have just took delivery of our second Tesla. We continue to have two of the latest generation Toyota Priuses. We have the all-electric BMW, which is used by our school security officers on campus. So as you can imagine, there used to be a car idling, and there are no idling zones in our schools all day. So that certainly was not great public relations, nor were we following what we were preaching. So that is all electric up at the school. Tyler, we also have an undercover vehicle that is a Clarity. It's worked out incredible. We have never had to put fuel in it other than to use the old fuel that's in it. We will pause the charge to use the fuel to pretty much start over so we don't end up with bad fuel in the vehicle. We have one Ford Explorer hybrid. We're still looking in that area if it's the best way for our usage. And like I said, we are ready right now to build out our second Tesla. It is rather unique. As far as we know, we continue to be the only police department that we're aware of that we have a non-complete, non-disclosure agreement with Tesla directly, which is really an incredible tool when it comes to coding and streamlining what we do and upfitting our police vehicles when it's a Tesla. Really, I can't say enough things about this. It's been an incredible approach. We have incredible success in it. I would urge any police leaders. Our fleet consists of about 70 police vehicles, and we have an in-house garage, and we service over 100 vehicles with other vehicles in town. We are able to move throughout the rest of the town. There's 6 other electric vehicles in town and an electric dump truck right now for DPW. So it is certainly growing in town. And again, whatever you guys need on my end from questions afterwards, I facilitate the financial side of it. I facilitate, pushing this at our meetings and moving forward. But without Charlie doing the technical side and being able to be the backbone of getting these cars where they need to be, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing. And the reason I say that is it needs to be a team effort. I could not have done this alone. And any town managers or police leaders are listening on this. You need to have somebody that can understand and have the desire on the technical side to make this happen. I will stop there and turn it over to Charlie for a little bit, and I'll be with you for questions. Again, it's an honor to be here with you guys. I think it's a very important cause. And if people would stop and listen a little more, and I think our current audience is here for a reason, we just need to reach out to others. So thank you very much. And Sarah, thank you for asking us and for being here today.
Thanks, Sarah. Charlie Sampson. And once again, it's a pleasure being with you today, and thank you for the invitation. I'm not going to add too much on top of what the chief said. It's just, when we took on this project, we wanted to do things the right way, and obviously integrating lights and radios is typical in police work. There's also integration of, cages and computer systems. This first Tesla that we put on the road, we didn't outfit it completely. We utilize it in our traffic division. So it's not actually running call to call to call. But what we did was we sat down with Tesla and we said, how can we make your car better? A better fleet car, number one, and a better car for public safety. Tesla did give us a non-disclosure agreement, as the chief stated. And what that allowed us to do was it allowed us to work with some other third-party vendors that police departments work with, your mobile dispatch systems, your radio systems, radar systems, license plate reader cameras. And we've incorporated some of the companies that we deal with all the time in our police vehicles and our fleets to see who wanted to jump on the bandwagon and try to make the electric vehicles in the Tesla that we had a model car for not having so many gizmos that we deal with on a daily basis in the car, but shrink those down and let's just put them right on the Tesla computer. So we do have a couple of companies that are looking at it. I can tell you Motorola Solutions, which is a radio vendor, a CAD mobile vendor for software. They're very interested in integrating their radio systems into the Tesla's computer itself. We're looking at a company out of Maryland, Raycore Systems, who does license plate readers. And they're trying to adapt their software to work with the Tesla cameras so that I don't have to go out and install more cameras onto this vehicle. And we utilize Wayland's lighting. Well, we've all heard the term of distracted driving. So, you know, in public safety, it's a concern of ours too. And we're trying to cut back. You know, in a typical vehicle that you would have today, you have your light control box, you have your radio control box, you have your computer to deal with. So let's cut down on the distracted driving for officers and incorporate that into the fine computer that Tesla gave us that sits right there on the dashboard and the steering wheel that you can control it from. So that's some of the technological end of it that we're looking to do. And we are still moving forward with our original Tesla Model 3. Our new Model Y that Chief mentioned that we took delivery of will be a complete patrol vehicle with the prisoner separation cage, with the computer in it, with a police console in it, and it will be used day to day going call to call. Just some of the other benefits, and Tyler had talked about them earlier, is the cost of utilizing these Teslas. Do they cost more money up front? Yes. They're approximately $12,000 more than what you would pay for a Ford SUV initially. But I could tell you, and once again, these numbers come from our partners in Sustainable Westport, who crunched the numbers for us. When you look at overall maintenance of this vehicle, our first year alone, for our 2019 Model 3 was just over $6,200 that we saved between maintenance costs and fuel costs for this vehicle in comparable driving of 23,000 miles a year, which is typically what our police fleet will put on each vehicle per year. So the cost itself, the cost factor itself, for us was a no-brainer. We needed to move forward. We utilized the savings to pay for the vehicle. But the bigger factor for me, only because I'm the technology guy, is, you know, Tesla was willing to work with me to provide us with the capability to try to integrate some of these technological items that we need to use in the police world to do our job. And to me, that was just a benefit. So it was good to work with this company. And as the chief said, we just took delivery of our second Tesla, and I look forward to utilizing the technology in the Tesla in the new police public safety fleet and making this a reality for Tesla also.
Well, excellent. Thank you both for such great context on your fleets. It's great to hear from a fleet with so much experience and such diverse experience between hybrid vehicles and electric vehicles. And like you said, you've worked with a lot of brands. So again, anyone put your questions in the chat as we move forward, and I'm excited to hear more. So up next, we will move into the second portion of this webinar, which is to talk about propane autogas as a vehicle fuel. And we will be hearing from our propane expert, Mike Phillips from Alliance AutoGas. Mike retired from law enforcement after a 28-year career where he last served as a major of the Criminal Enforcement Division of a sheriff's office in North Carolina. After retiring from law enforcement, Mike became the municipal and law enforcement specialist for Alliance AutoGas in 2015. At Alliance AutoGas, he serves law enforcement and municipal counties throughout the Southeast and Gulf states with clean energy autogas programs. And Mike, with that, I will turn the floor over to you.
Thank you for the invitation to be here, Sarah. We appreciate it, and we're glad to have the opportunity. You can go on to the next slide if you wish. As Sarah said, I am a retired officer. I've not been in alternative fuels my whole career. As a matter of fact, I wasn't looking to get into that career. I was looking just to retire as a police officer and then enjoy it. But what we did at my agency is we actually did a program, an autogas program. We did about 50 vehicles, patrol vehicles, consisting of Tahoes and Fords and Durangos over that period of time. With the success of that program that we did, I became a true understander, or gained an understanding of how this technology works, and became a believer. And that's when I went to work for Alliance AutoGas. I'll tell you a little bit about Alliance AutoGas, who we are. We are a turnkey program company that can actually come in and offer you every aspect of the program that you need to make it successful. We do everything from the consulting, the vehicle technology, the conversions. We do refueling infrastructure. We do fuel supply. We do maintenance and warranty, parts and service. So we can handle it all without going out of house to do it for you. The next slide. We offer a biofuel system. The vehicle will actually run on gasoline, but it will also run on autogas. The operator has the ability to switch at any time from one to the other. And you're actually operating vehicles that you're used to operating. You operate a standard Interceptor Explorer. Our systems work on those, so you don't have to change the type of vehicle that your fleet is used to operating. We can do pass-through conversions, but we also do conversions on your existing fleet. Next slide. Some of the vehicles that we support, we have a lot of transit companies that we work with. We actually do everything from like your F-150 pickup trucks all the way up to your F-750 pickup trucks. There you see one of the sheriff's Explorers out of Spotsylvania County in Virginia. So we cover pretty much the full spectrum. Down in the right-hand corner is a public works truck for the city of Danville. That is an F-750 truck. So we cover the full range and full spectrum of vehicles. The only thing we don't do is we don't convert diesel. We only convert gasoline engines. Next slide, please. Less is more. What you're seeing there is just a chart of what autogas does as a clean energy source. Reduces carbon monoxide, smog reducing hydrocarbons, reduces NOx, and also carbon dioxide. And those numbers are typically, what you're going to see is somewhere around anywhere from 30 to 60% are what you're going to average out on your overall greenhouse gas emissions reduction. Next slide. Top benefits of autogas is domestically sourced. 99% of all autogas is produced right here in the United States. The other 1% is produced in Canada. You continue with your high performance. Doing this to your vehicle does not diminish the performance at all. Actually, your performance goes up. What's happening is if you're running a gasoline fleet right now, you're probably running 87 octane fuel. Autogas is about 110 octane. So it doesn't mean it's going to go 600 miles an hour by no means. But what's going to happen is your engine is going to run more efficient, cleaner, and will serve better, and your performance will go up. It's probably the lowest total cost of ownership, autogas, because what's happening is you're buying fuel at a price that is drastically reduced from gasoline. It's typically about a 30% savings over gasoline. So if right now I think we're selling propane at about $1.53 a gallon. And typically you're going to see that 30% difference, 30 to 50% difference between gasoline and propane. Even when gasoline spikes the way it has now, propane will go up, but it maintains that division among cost. It's a reliable energy fuel. We don't have to worry about pipelines or anything like that. We get the fuel to you, and it's safe. If you go to the next slide. We'll talk about safe a little bit more in just a few minutes. Customers of ours can choose either private on-site refueling infrastructure that comes with a fuel management system. So if your agency doesn't have a fuel management system, the system that we would put in would actually have that management system in there. Now, what our company does is we actually put the infrastructure in at no cost to the customer up front. The only cost that the customer has is the site prep work. That would be the only cost for that. Next slide, please. Talking about safety here, we have the exclusive quick connect nozzle. You probably remember back in the day when you had to screw a propane filler valve onto the valve of the tank. And you had to wear gloves and glasses and everything to be able to do it. Now it's a quick connect nozzle. You just click it on. You don't have to wear gloves. You don't have to wear glasses. And it's a faster fill than gasoline. So it takes you less time to fill it than if you use gasoline. Now, one of the things about the system is that what you'll see is different reasons that different agencies will use the technology. One agency may use it totally for cost savings. That's all they care about is just saving money over their fuel costs and reduction in maintenance costs. Some agencies will use it to reduce emissions. And then some agencies will use it to get away from range anxiety, because what you're actually doing, you've got two fueling systems on your vehicle. So you've actually doubled your range with your vehicle. And some use it for all three. So those are the ones that are really successful in the program. And if you look at the slide, that is a photograph of the system, the infrastructure that we would put in. And the middle photo is showing you the fuel card that would actually operate your fuel maintenance. So you can track it. Next slide, please. This is a sample of our current users in rural settings. Pretty much Waveti. They are an area transit fleet that serves Yadkin and Surrey counties in North Carolina. They have multiple fueling sites. So the site that you just saw, they actually have 3 of those located throughout the county. Chesterfield County, Virginia, they do municipal works, sheriff's office, and school buses. They have multiple sites. I think they have 5 sites and are putting in a new site at this time. Iredell County, North Carolina, the sheriff's office and the transit use it. They serve all of Iredell and parts of Mecklenburg County. They as well have multiple fuel sites. Gaston County is the sheriff's office, transit, and public works fleet. They multiple fuel locations. Spotsylvania County in Virginia, their sheriff's office utilizes the technology. They as well have multiple fueling locations. And Polk County, Florida, have their sheriff's office, 200, probably over 200 vehicle fleet right now in propane. And I think they have 6 fueling locations. And again, those fueling locations have not cost the jurisdiction anything. We put those in at no cost. Next slide, please. If you have any questions, ask me at the end of this, or you can contact me at that number. That's it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike, for all of that great context on propane. And as you guys may notice, we have the Spotsylvania Sheriff's Office on the line with us today to talk about their experience with propane autogas. So today we have Major Wells calling in. Major Wells has a business degree and a background in retail and criminal justice, beginning his law enforcement career in the 1980s with the city of Fredericksburg. He was involved with narcotics, bicycle team, and participated in the mounted patrol. From 1997 to 2012, Major Wells was a special agent for the state of Virginia with the Alcohol Beverage Control Authority. Major Wells has been serving the citizens of Spotsylvania County since 2012. Presently, he oversees the department's budget, communications, animal control, courts, and the Administrative Services Division, which encompasses training, crime prevention, evidence and property, recruitment and hiring, and the Wellness and Maintenance Response Team, grants, and fleet management. And so with that, Major Wells, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're coming through great.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the invitation to this forum. And I'm not sure, but I think the slides, I can't see obviously, so I'm on the phone, but if you'll just randomly go through the slides, they have really no connection to any particular thing that's going on. It's just the vehicles that we have. To give you a quick background, Spotsylvania County is located midway between Washington, D.C. and Richmond, Virginia, right on the interstate. It has about 135,000 population. We have about 250 sworn and about 460 square miles, so we patrol quite a large area. We have about 300 vehicles in our fleet. Right now, we only have about 32 that are converted for fuel for propane, and the county has an additional 9 buses and/or trucks that they have in right now on the road. The nuts and bolts of how we kind of got started was in 2011, and we got a grant from Southeast Propane Autogas Development Program, and it started, and we partnered with our county fleet maintenance division for installation, and we were trained, or their people were trained by Baker Equipment out of Richmond and American Alternative Fuel out of New York for installation. To tag on to what Mike said a minute ago, we have 2 fueling stations, and they are randomly located in the county and centrally located. So we do end up getting quite a bit of mileage out of one tank of propane and along with another tank of gas if that's what they want. But we found most deputies don't like to switch over to gasoline because they have, well, I'll again tag on to what Mike was saying. It's increased in horsepower in the vehicle. It's increased in fuel efficiency. They spend less time at the pumps and get more time on the road. They increase the life of the vehicle for cleaner burning fuel because of that. They decrease the population and, the pollution. They also, there's a big increase in fuel economy, and there's a drastic cost savings on the overall for gasoline versus propane. We estimate between 40 and 60 cents per gallon. So overall, it's a huge savings. And again, the deputies we just have a hard time understanding why we can't get more of them other than the cost of it because of all of those savings. And as Mike said a minute ago, some people do for 1 or 2 reasons. We use all the reasons, and we are very happy. We end up saving about $10,000 overall in fuel a year, gasoline versus propane. And it's about a 2.5, 3-year return on the cost of the investment. So our vehicles normally last 7 to 8 years, depending on where they are and what they're being done. And all these vehicles that are propane are put on patrol. So they're on the road, usually about 12 hours a day when they're assigned. And each vehicle is assigned to a specific deputy, so they're not traded off. Our last vehicles we converted was in 2018 due to a new Buy America certification, but we've moved forward and between working with everybody, we're back on track to continue to install, and we're in the process of installing 5 new vehicles right now. Back in the beginning of the installs, the new vehicles or the Explorers had some challenges due to the location of the tank in the rear storage area. When we went to the utilities from the Crown Vics, because we had a number of Crown Vics that were installed and had no problem there. Deputies always carry as much as they can, sometimes maybe more than they should, but they definitely carry the amount of tools that they need. But again, we partnered with our maintenance shop. We partnered with our radio shop. We partnered because that was an issue too, where that was mounted. And everybody came together, and they actually developed a shelf that went into the back of it, and it allowed the deputy to better organize their gear. In the overall partnering, I can't say enough about Blossom Fuel and Jameson Walker with Blossom, because they've just been an asset to the program beyond belief. They've assisted us in so many different ways, even down to the dealing with the shelf that they made. They helped design, helped input on that. So they're just not a, here's the gas, what are you going to do? They are everything that comes about. They're a part of it and want to be a part of it, because their training and their help and their input has been invaluable to us. They also help train 3 mechanics at our fleet shop, which now they work on any of the propane vehicles. So there's no outsourcing to any other shop, that we all are in-house, that's owned by the county. And in conclusion, overall, the Sheriff's Office and Fleet Management have been pleased with the project and its partnerships, and would advise anyone interested in transitioning its fleet to gasoline. We would 100% advise that you look into it, and it helps reduce emissions, fuel costs, and the propane autogas will be the greatest fuel that we've ever had. And I look forward to continuing the partnerships. And as I heard earlier in the electric cars, we also intend to look into that also. So thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Major Wells. It's great to hear about all of the great things Propane has been doing in your fleet, and the fact that you guys are expanding out and even looking into more mixed fleets. That's something that we see is really able to serve diverse communities. So we would definitely recommend that people look into that as well. So now we can move into the question and answer period. Again, please feel free to send in your questions to the chat, but also if you want to just unmute yourself and ask questions, we are also great with that. So I will go ahead and start asking a couple that have been sent in. The first is about electric vehicles, and specifically the Westport Police Department's experience. They're curious if your police department has experienced any crashes with Tesla, and if so, how expensive, easy, or hard were the vehicles to fix, given all of the computer parts and technology involved?
Good afternoon again, Fody Koskinas for the Westport Police Department. Sarah, it's a great question, and we have researched while purchasing the cars where we would be if that did occur. Other than some wheel replacement and minor things that either under warranty, which Tesla was extremely responsive in replacing parts, or we were very easily accessible to get the wheels, we have not had any crashes with this car. Currently, the first one is almost at 30,000 miles. So we do have quite a bit of mileage on it, but we have not had to experience. Now, my body shop that we use for our Tahoes and our Explorers has shown some concern. He's done some research and he's not sure he'll be able to get the parts right away. Tesla has recommended that they have body shops that they work with directly that they may be able to help us out with, but we have not gone down that road yet. Hopefully not soon, but I know it's coming one of these days.
Excellent. Well, happy to hear that you guys haven't experienced any crashes. Let's hope you guys can keep up that track record. But also good to know that background. And then, so you did already answer about maintenance. So how do the Tesla Model 3s that you've experienced measure up performance-wise compared to the traditional police vehicles you're used to running?
I'm going to turn it off Officer Sampson on that one. He has a little more feedback from the officers, but I will say early on, we certainly looked at the crash ratings and performance, and we found it to be superior, but I would give you Officer Sampson for some of the feedback from some of the officers who drive it regularly.
Right, Sarah, and another good question by Bruce there. As far as performance goes, obviously, one of the big agencies, the Michigan State Police, actually do performance testing on police vehicles. In 2021, they took out the Mustang Mach-E and rated that car as being one of the best EV cars that's available on the market for public safety. The Tesla has not technically been vetted by them yet, but in other aspects, the officers that actually drive our vehicle, which it's driven anywhere from 8 to 16 hours a day, absolutely love it. the car handles well. It's an all-wheel drive vehicle. It accelerates well, and they just can't say no. And obviously, being a Tesla, it's extremely comfortable inside. When you're sitting inside a vehicle for 8 to 16 hours a day, you need to have some creature comforts in it, and the Tesla does afford those comforts to make it a lot better for the officer during those long shifts.
Excellent. I don't think that's something that a lot of people really consider when they're looking at performance of the vehicle, is how comfortable they are. But like you said, if you're sitting in them, people invest in good office chairs. It's good to have a good seat to be in all day. We have a question for Tyler, maybe more of a little bit of a personal question, but definitely relevant. Are there any EV vehicles getting ready to hit the market that you are particularly excited about?
Yes. So there are a lot hitting the market. I think there are like 13 or so I mentioned earlier coming on this year in the light duty sector. But I think the one that I'm most excited about is the Ford F-150 Lightning. I'm not personally much of a truck guy, but whenever I watched that the reveal, I was like, oh, I could own that. I would like that. It's specifically the focus on how much power that can offer for like power tools or for backup generation for your home. I live down here in Louisiana. We get a lot of natural disasters and a lot of power outages. And they're specifically designing it to be kind of a workhorse and be able to, power a home for several days, which is pretty incredible. 9.6 kilowatts of available power is kind of bonkers. And it is pretty clear to me, looking at what Ford's doing in terms of all of their production targets, that they mean it when they're doing the electrification thing. The Mach-E is like an incredible vehicle. And so I have very, very high hopes for what they're doing with the Ford F-150 Lightning. And also Ford has a really long legacy of doing like fleet service and offering fleet prices and being really supportive for fleets. So I think that that's going to be a really big benefit in terms of what fleets can accept, not just individual owners. So really excited about that vehicle.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that vehicle would also be great for any rural areas who need workhorses in their municipal governments, anything that needs some off-roading. Very exciting. We also had a couple of questions that were submitted by people who weren't able to be here today. We have one question for the propane fleets, and also Mike, you may be able to answer this. How do you choose what roles of vehicles to convert over to propane if you're looking at a partial conversion on your fleet? What type of vehicles would you prioritize to convert if you are running a sheriff's fleet or a police fleet?
Sarah, one of the things that we recommend is that the agency, and this is whether it's police or public works, parks and recreation, whatever, it really doesn't matter. I think the number one consideration should be, what are your high mileage vehicles? That's where you're going to get the most impact of what you're doing. Those vehicles that are on the road consistently. I know the agency that I retired from, my patrol officers, they were doing probably 42,000 miles a year in their vehicles. So those were the vehicles we targeted. Those were the high mileage. And that's what we try to recommend, is that to get the most impact, choose those high mileage vehicles. Now, which vehicle that may be, as long as we have an EPA certification for it, it doesn't matter to us what you choose to do. We're going to work with you anyway. We have over 500 EPA certifications. We can go all the way back to about 2012 on certifications. So there's not many vehicles out there, especially with the big three vehicle manufacturers. We can do all the big three. But yeah, that's one of the biggest considerations. You really don't want to invest funding for the program on vehicles that are going to do 3,000 miles a year. That you're not going to get your return on that. You want to make it profitable, or at least make it where it's meeting your goals and expectations. Hope I answered the question.
Yes, that is great. And we are about coming up on time, so I'd like to try to squeeze in two last questions in here. One of the questions that came in prior to the event didn't specify which fleet, so I think this is open to both our propane and EV fleets. They're asking about how has it been handling a mixed fleet? What benefits or barriers have you seen operating both gasoline and propane or gasoline and EV cars?
Sarah, I guess I'll field this one again. Fody Koskinas from the Westport Police Department. We have the luxury of having full-time mechanics at the police station, so it hasn't really been a problem. As far as the Teslas that we use, it's mostly software upgrades, things that Charlie is able to do in-house, or the warranty repairs up at this point. Again, being 45 miles out of New York City, you can imagine there is Tesla dealerships, even though they can't sell in the state of Connecticut. It's sort of the running joke because of dealership laws. We have to go out of state to buy a Tesla to bring it in state, but there are service stations. So that has not been an issue. Same with our Priuses, and obviously the Ford hybrid has not been a problem at all. And same with our BMW and Honda. It has not been, literally, when I tell you how little service these cars actually need, if there's a single motivator in why you should look at this, is how little maintenance there is.
Excellent. Great to hear.
And in
And
terms
then Major Wells, do you have any perspective on that from the propane side?
yes, I was going to say that, I mean, the 90% of the vehicle is unchanged, or probably 95%. It's an addition. So the motor is still the same. So the mechanics are still working on the same motor. And with the training that they receive, it's in-house also. The training that they receive is pretty flawless in anything that we're doing or any repairs that we've done. It's flowed fine. We've had no extra costs on anything, and all the warranties from Ford, which is 99% of what I think we've got converted, is not affected. So even the dealership, when they work on it, have no problem coming back with any issues at all. We've been very pleased and have no cost extra that we've seen.
Beautiful. That is great. And so we have one last question in the chat, and this is for Tyler specifically about your experiences in Louisiana. They ask, has Louisiana explored FEMA DRF disaster relief funds availability? And while you answer that, I'm just going to move to our contact information slide so people have time to jot any of that down.
That's a great question, and that's actually a source of funding that I'm not incredibly familiar with in terms of how it might be applicable to alt fuels. So I'll be doing some research about that, because that's not something that I've particularly looked into. I'm sure that Departments of Natural Resources and Department of Environmental Quality here in Louisiana have looked at that for some of this stuff, but I'm not nearly as familiar with it. So I'll look into that. I know we've done some disaster planning stuff with alt fuels and have worked on some plans for where we need charging or propane fueling or CNG fueling for evacuation routes. But there's nothing super solidified in Louisiana yet for those alt fuels, and we're actually working on that pretty actively. So maybe something like that could be applicable. So I'll definitely look into that. And the hazmat grants. Yeah, I'll look into that. I really appreciate it. Always good to have another funding source that could be used for this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Those funding sources are definitely vital. So here is the contact information for myself and John, who is also a program coordinator on our team. I would like to encourage anyone who has any remaining questions, if something pops into your head after the event, definitely reach out to one of us and we can get you connected with those answers. Also, I just want to thank everyone for being here today. Thank you to the participants who submitted the great questions. Thank you so much to our distinguished speakers. We appreciate all of your time today and hope that this was a great experience for everyone. And with that, we can close it out and give everyone the rest of their afternoon.